Hello everyone, and welcome back to Misfits Racing League action. My name is Strifium, back here with the stream. Unicorn no longer having to help me out there, but however, Unicorn joining me for Tier 2 action as always. Singapore, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a good week so far, with Singapore. It's provided some very interesting action in the first two races, so I'm looking forward to seeing what the Tier 2 grid here can do this evening.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to it. We've had two races now this week around Singapore. We had the EU from Tuesday that you and I did, and then we had, of course, now the Oceanic grid that took to the 23-turn circuit, the Marina Bay circuit. It is it's tight, but it's a lot of fun. But we've had rain in two races here so far. Now, one fantastic thing about this circuit is that we haven't had any safety cars this week. So I have no idea what to expect for Tier 2 action. Tier 2 never ceases to impress. Let's take a look at the calendar. This is round 16. We've gone through so much action here this season so far. We've seen the British Grand Prix, Hungary, Belgium, Italy most recently, and now we're here in Singapore. This is, of course, the second half of the calendar. We go through to Russia next week, Japan, the US, Mexico, as well as Brazil, and we round things out in Abu Dhabi. And the fantastic thing is we have so much racing left. We have the 5 grids, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Take a look at the drivers lining up today. We have quite a few people on the grid who are here in their full-time capacity, and a couple, well, one new driver to talk about in some case. Kaibachini and Cotter is over at Mercedes. We have Yasko and Scars. That's the two Ferraris. Gadwin and Liam for Red Bull. Little Bear and Mateo over at McLaren. Ali, as he told me, over at Renault. With Undertaker, of course. And Adrian with Wisp at AlphaTauri. Now, Darian Alfie, Extreme for Racing Point. Maxim and Cjoss for Alfa Romeo. Crampy and Henners making his debut in Tier 2. Which is quite the sight. He is, of course, taking away. He's stepped down from Tier 1, his own choice. He just said, there's a vacant seat there, so he's going to take things over at Haas. Max Singster no longer racing in the league. We have, of course, Domi and Squid rounding out the 20 drivers in this one, and I'm very, very excited. Let's take a look at the standings here, because the standings are quite tight at the top right now. We have, of course, Domi leading the championship by a fair margin, 249 for the Williams. Kaibachini there in second position, 187 points for the Mercedes. And it's the reigning Tier 2 champion, Liam, there in third, 169. Wisp and Maxim B with Crampy. They're all quite tight in that grid. We have Williams in the lead with the constructors of Mercedes and Red Bull second and third. And with all of that, Unicorn, I think we are finally ready to go racing here in Singapore.
Just waiting on the last of the drivers, Dirk Chocolate, hopping in to the McLaren. And there he is. So we do have a full grid now. And like you said, we are ready to get underway. We'll put out the message. First time in a while that I've been doing this, but yes. Well, we are indeed ready to go.
The roles were reversed last week. Now we're back. And I'm quite happy to say that. I hope things are good on. Well, I hope all of you viewing along, if you happen to see any major issues with the stream in its lagging or anything like this, let us know in the chat. But I'll be happy to see. And well, I'm hands together here, hoping we have no technical issues as far as the stream's concerned, and most definitely hoping we have no technical issues as far as the race is concerned. Unicorn counting down. Now we are jumping into action.
Yeah, you never know with Codemasters, but fingers crossed, touch wood, all of that good stuff. That we get a issue-free lobby. Obviously, I believe it was the Tier 2 race last week where we had that very odd decent where not only did we not see the lights at the same time, but neither did the drivers.
No, that was very interesting for sure. I don't caught us off guard. Maxim B, Undertaker, Kaibachini, the top three on the timing tower here ahead of this 18-minute qualifying session, and I'm happy to say we have no raindrops coming down, which is something we've been seeing in the league so far this week. Cjoss, Adrian, Domi with Tim, Mateo, Cotters, and Dirk Chocolate partnering Mateo. That's quite the matchup there in a reserve capacity for Dirk today. Liam over at Red Bull in 11th here on the timing tower so far here, with Wisp in 12th, Gadwin 13th, Henners in 14th in his new role over at Haas Tier 2. Rampy there as always. It's the new dynamic duo between the two. Ixon in 16th, Squid there in 17th. We have Ducks on the grid in a reserve capacity as well. Darian here in 19th with Yasko rounding out the 20 racers in this one. Dirk Hulkenberg over there.
Yeah, he is always around. Obviously, the reserve seats, they are applied earlier in the week, but last minute dropouts, and Dirk, he's filled that last slot a few times now, so very thankful for all the reserves we've got, and not just Dirk jumping in at last minute, but Ducks as well as Tim as well, I believe, is on this grid somewhere. Yeah, there is, in the Ferrari up in 7th place. But yeah, anyway, I can hear an engine firing up. It looks like one of the Mercedes is getting ready to leave the garage as well. There's a few of the other cars. Whether we've had that desync again in the lobby, where
we are being advised that we have had about a minute and 30 delay by Beavis here. And I will say Jake has come across as the weatherman. We have a confirmation for dry conditions in the race. So these drivers got the luck of the draw, it would seem, considering how the other two races went, Unicorn.
Yeah, I think a wet race around any of these tight street circuits with those impending walls is not really what many drivers dream of. I'm sure some of them are more well attuned to the wet weather conditions, but for the majority of drivers in most racing games, dry conditions is what they're more used to. They put more practice into the dry conditions, and they're, as a result, a lot happier when they see that dry weather report.
A lot of drivers on softs right now, and this is something interesting considering from the races we've seen, we know the tire wear here in Singapore is quite harsh, most especially on those very soft compounded tires. And there's a lot of drivers getting out, perhaps maybe burning them up, getting some repetition in around the circuit before maybe going on those mediums to try and set a fast lap here. But it is going to be Squid in the Williams, the first driver out of the pit lane leading this grid to potentially set the first lap of the session. Something else we've seen is drivers can have a tendency to invalidate. Another key thing to talk about here, just before we jump into, the flying times, the pit entry in Singapore can also be quite unique. Important to note, pit assist is disabled for these racers, so they need to get the cars slowed down, and we saw it on Monday. Or not Monday, excuse me, I'm getting a little bit behind there, but Tuesday with the EU grid, where iFilipich had that 5-second penalty on pit entry, and it had everybody, well, it had me, not everybody, but it had me concerned for a minute that he might have tossed the win with that. So we'll have to see how things go. Singapore is home to a lot of different dynamics. Squid now coming through on a flyer.
Yeah, it's a super interesting track, and huge 23 turns. A lot of them are 90-degree, but at the same time, there's enough variation to make this an interesting track as Squid comes down into sector 2 through turn 7. He's invalidated, taking too much of that outside curb, and he's not going to be too happy with that. It's kind of hard to do that around here, but he has managed it. Codders then, still on a flying lap. He'll be the first if all goes well for him. There's also that new DRS zone down between turns 13 and 14 this year, making a grand total of 3. Codders coming around that turn 13 now, so here we are across the DRS line and flying down this straight, and that adds just another opportunity to overtake on this circuit, or another aid for overtaking. Then it comes down turn 15 into 16 and 17. This sort of snake-like section of track where it's a right, left, left, right, right, left.
The turns start flying at you pretty quick around here.
Indeed, and now Cotter's coming up to the last two corners, 22, which feeds straight into 23. And across the line with a 135.5 to open up qualifying in the Mercedes.
Cotter's Dirk Chocolate's teammate in, of course, the EU grid, Hanners. A 136.9 from him on the mediums. Very neatly done from him, making his Tier 2 debut here. He'll, of course, have some stiff company in the Williams of Domi leading this championship. And also, of course, Kai Bacchini. Jump on board with him, as it looks like he is not currently on a flyer. Maybe invalidated his flyer near the end. Not entirely sure. Seajoss is into the pit lane now. He was unable to get a lap in on those mediums. Dirk Chocolate, he was on an invalidated run.
Yeah, Darian Alfie's invalidated and has damage on his front wing as well, so not a good first lap from him. Undertaker's just come into the pit lane as well. He was going for a lap on those medium combat tyres, which, like you said, I'm surprised we're not seeing more drivers do here, to be honest.
Squid's really just burning these tires up right now, and I think he wants to come through on mediums later, and he's taking his time.
Yeah, whether we'll see him actually qualifying on these tyres, because they are, like you said, unless like they've got gravel on them. I mean, they haven't, because I don't think there's a single gravel trap around there, but the tyres themselves look like they've just been absolutely worn thin. He is going to qualify on 136.6. Definitely beatable, but possibly not on mediums.
Well, it's curious to see Ducks on a flyer now in the Renault. It's curious to see here with Squid, because he went 2 laps around on those softs to get that time, and plus he's got to come around again. Then he's got to beat the time on the mediums, so he's got to be confident on the mediums if that is the plan, because I feel as though a 136.693, it's not the quickest time in the world, but it's also not the slowest, to a point where if you make a mistake on a lap with the mediums, what happens if you don't get there? Then you're starting the race on those softs should you not get knocked out of that top 10. So it's a very interesting dynamic, to say the least, for anybody really that qualifies on those softs that doesn't have a little bit more time in the bank.
Yeah, it's a long lap as well, so you don't get, you probably get about 3 runs compared to some tracks where you might be able to get 4 in. And it's cutting a fine line, because if he messes up the medium run, like you said, he's going to have a very short amount of time to get out on a fresh set of softs and try again and beat that time, so he starts on a much nicer compound of tyre than the one he set that lap time on. And speaking of lap times, we haven't seen too many. Ducks is going to come around and set his first. And it's not a bad looking time, a 135.8 on the mediums, so definitely possible to beat Squid's time with the yellow wall tyre. Very nicely done from the reserve driver there in the number 90 Renault.
Gasco on his way into the pit lane. He's in the Ferrari right now, slowing things up on his way in a bit. Take a look at someone who just started a flyer. The Racing Point reserve today in for Extreme. That's Ixon. His teammate, Darian Alfie. Darian Alfie, very quick driver, if I'm not mistaken. Just finished up P4 in Spa in F1 Adria. So he's really burning it, Darian. Back-to-back races. Yoda, I think, participates in that race as well. He's got Tier 1 in about an hour and a half. So these guys are really grinding and pushing and pushing and pushing. Tier 1, I mean, it's a cage match if I've ever seen one.
And that's the thing, you put everyone in this pressure cooker environment, some of these guys race each other, you know, more than once a week, whether it's in MRL or elsewhere, and that constant battling makes you want to push to be faster than the guy around you, and it just, constant league racing does make people better. It's a trial by fire, and you come out of it a better driver, and these guys, like I said, some of them, you've got Dirk, He races in EU, he reserves here regularly. Sometimes we see him reserving in club. So Codders as well. He's here currently on provisional pole. He races in EU as well. As many of these drivers race on multiple different grids.
Nixon through 22, 23 now to the line. It's P3 for him. 136.396. And there goes Tim in the Ferrari, whom I have to admit I didn't even realize was in this grid as a reserve today.
Similar situation to Dirk there for Tim. Fairly late on the reserves list.
Well, there's some competition for Domi to really, throw a wrench into the equation. Tim, of course, is an EU driver. And we have... oh, that's too good. So Tim is here. Hanners is here.
Kai Pacini appears to have aborted his lap, and he's on mediums, and even though we're a minute and a half behind, that still puts only 8 minutes left on the clock, so really not too much time here for these drivers to set times, and we've only got 8 on the board right now. So I feel these drivers need to get a little bit of a move on in terms of setting laps, but we are seeing a lot of people switch to these medium compounder tyres. Maybe they were just waiting for our advice, our opinion on what they should go out on. But
Liam's on a flyer right now. He's on the softs. The Red Bull, of course, the reigning Tier 2 champion from last season, Season 2, of course.
just to see what he can do as well. Darren Alfie, he's back out on a flyer after it. He's already had one issue here this evening, damaging that front wing. But
he's on a flyer
he's
here.
Invalidated. Yeah, he's done what Kai's done. He's stopped in the same place as well. So what is going on right now with these drivers? A lot of them are doing very similar things in terms of stopping their laps.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So only only half of this grid has managed to get times in, and it would seem that everyone's clearly struggling here. Maxim B jumps into fourth. He's on the mediums. 135.877 out of the Canadian in the Alfa Romeo. And we know how I am. Yes, I am somewhat partial to Canadians. I am a Canadian. Darian Alfie crosses the line. He starts
well, he's definitely flying now. But that 156.8, definitely not what he wants to be leaving qualifying with. That's for sure.
Yeah, everybody's going to be looking to get onto these mediums because of the strategy here. We saw in the European grid, you'll remember only 3 drivers opted to start on those soft compound tires out of the intermediate qualifying session. Everybody had free choice of tire, and still yet only 3 chose the softs here, and that really goes to show they do die quite quick here.
Yeah, and I do believe one of those was a mistake as well from Lutra. He didn't want the soft compound tire. It was just the game playing a little bit of a trick on him. It's Kai Pacini, a 134.8 on the mediums. That's more of what we were expecting, and we are within those last 5 minutes, even for the drivers with the delay on the clock. So the track now at its peak performance.
One big question is, where's Domi? He's in 15th position currently on the timing tower here. No lap set. He's got soft selected in that garage.
I was going to say, I think he was on mediums, but he switched back to the softs, and I don't expect him to want to qualify on those. He switched to intermediates now, so maybe he doesn't... Maybe he's expecting a safety car and wants to preserve his tyres, which is a very risky strategy. Very risky indeed.
He's sitting there with a radio, you can tell, because look at him now. He's got the intermediate selected, so he's got a little toothpick in his mouth, just having a laugh. You know? Domi, I'm gonna go ahead, and because of your antics, sir, I'm gonna make a very early prediction. Feel free to quote me on it later, ladies and gentlemen in the chat. Domi will not win this race.
I reckon if he does stick that out, though, he will get the in-game Driver of the Day award, though. So that'll be my prediction. Domi in-game Driver of the Day award.
To win or to be first, they have to finish. Mateo in the McLaren on a flyer. Cheers to Josh in the chat. Appreciate the clip, sir. There it is. Mateo coming around. What's the time going to be? Pole position out of the McLaren. This is only his second race in the Misfits Racing League. Making his official debut in Tier 2 in Monza. His reserve debut in Monza last week as well. But here we have him on pole position. Very neatly done from him, I have to say. High expectations for this man right here.
Crampy's about to round the final corner, but as both Mateo and Crampy around this front of the corner, there's a big chunk of wing on that pit entrance as Crampy comes into P4 on the mediums. Nicely done from him, but I want to know whose wing that is lying on the pit entrance. Someone's, like you said earlier, is a very challenging pit entry, but someone's had a big issue there.
Joss in the Alfa Romeo is currently flying. He's got no time set in this session. He's on the mediums, of course, just as pretty well everybody on this grid is trying to get a time in on. You can see currently Tim, Cotters, and Squid are in the top 10, and they are on the soft compound tires. Tim, presently on a lap, I do believe.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning
Oh, no,
as well
he's
that
just
we
come
are
across,
behind.
excuse me, now that I mention it, I believe he's just come across ahead of Kaibachini into P2 on those softs, which is a very interesting choice of tire for him. Domi's out on softs right now.
Interesting decision for the Williams, because those tires, we've said it before, we'll say it again, they do not last very long at all. And qualifying on them, very, very risky. As Joss, a 136.2 for the Alfa Romeo. 10th place for him.
Not too far off Maxim in that equation.
No, and I imagine where Squid is right now in 11th place. That's quite a desirable place to start this race. I would think if you could start on the hards, we saw that be a fairly strong tactic. It's very, very flexible if we do see a safety car. We haven't seen one yet.
Checking in with Dirk Chocolate right now. He's had quite a few runs around Singapore. Most notably ruining my race in the Apache Division, but we're not going to talk about that. I only say that because I know he'll watch it back or he'll be listening right now. Turn 13. Watch out for Dirk Chocolate, ladies and gentlemen. Word of the wise. But he is on a flyer in the McLaren. The Dirk Hulkenberg in full force here. Big brush of the wall there from my point of view. Domi pulled off a little bit of a slide out from Dirk here. P13 for him. Wisp is on a flyer. I'm checking in with all the racers, of course, that are yet to come through on times here. Wisp and Dirk, quite quick. Domi, also quite quick. I think he might even be... Well, he's just began a lap, if I'm not mistaken. Or he's coming not too far behind Wisp at the moment, and that may be Squid. I'll have to check in with the Williams drivers in just one moment. Someone's had an issue.
Right, yellow flag, it's a Renault. It's the reserve of Ducks. He's got no damage. Oh, Red Bull as well. That is Gadwin. He's reversing out of a wall, but again, no damage on that Red Bull. I think he might have just run into the runoff zone outside of turn 8. As Adrian, I believe, just set 5th fastest lap of 135.3.
His teammate Wisp now through 23. That's a 135.8 P10 for him. Domi is on a lap right now. So is Squid. Where does Squid cross? P13. It's a near 7/10 improvement for him. Henders is flying as well. Check in with the Haas.
Domi's lap right now looks very, very composed. But does he want to qualify on these soft compounded tyres? The answer would be no. He's coming into the pit lane in that Williams. Making sure he gets his class slowed down in time. And interesting choice from the Williams. I heard him... I mean, a little bit of a rumour that he wanted to start at the back. But...
Well, if my dear friend Felipe happens to be in the stream, that is how you enter the pit lane, to start at the back of a grid, sir. Well, I'm sure quite a few people will know or may have seen that clip, but Felipe in practice on Monday had a little bit of a never do that again moment. It is going to be Matteo, the Frenchman, of course, younger brother of esports driver Nicolas Longue. Matteo on pole position, a 134.605 out of him, near 2/10 ahead of Tim, who qualified on the softs as well. That's Tim in the Ferrari there in P2. Kai Bacchini in the Mercedes rounds out your top three here with Crampy and Adrian 4-5. We will go down through the rest of this grid with you in just a few moments' time.
Yeah, super nice lap time for Matteo on those mediums. Tim on those softs. If... You know, we could see him just sort of prevent Kai Bacchini from coming past for a little bit. If Kai Bacchini gets stuck behind Tim there, that could cost him for the race win, and Matteo would be allowed just a little bit of free rein at the start of this grid. It'll also be interesting to see what sort of tyre choices. I wouldn't be surprised to see a lot of these drivers outside the top 10 hopping on to the hard compound of tyre.
I think it's a very, very good choice, the hard compound tire, because although we haven't seen safety cars this week, there is still a high potential for a safety car here in Singapore. Now, this grid, it's a pressure cooker. These drivers are aggressive. There are going to be risks. You may see collisions. Viewer discretion is advised. No, but it is going to be a very fun race. 31 laps, of course, is the duration around here, and we've been told it's going to be entirely dry running.
Yeah, and the dry running always gives everyone a little bit more confidence in their car, I think. And looking at the tyre choices, we are seeing a lot of hards outside the top 10. No softs in sight. Only 2 of these drivers qualified on the soft. That's Tim and Codders. And then...
Those are your big safety car gamblers as well, I have to say. It's what we said about Lutra, and we saw how that played out when the safety car did not end up coming into the equation for that race. And, you know what, I have to say, Lutra did quite well. He took early wing damage, he was on the softs, he had to pit off of them. He ended up having quite the dynamic race and recovered to P8 from, if I'm not mistaken, 6th. So... He was at the back of that grid at one point. So there is potential for recovery here. Should you make some mistakes on your tire choices, especially if you've got good pace.
Yeah, it was a super nice recovery drive from him. He didn't get onto the podium, which I'm sure he would have preferred. But still, the recovery drive from him was impressive, to say the least. And it does show that the strategy still is very viable. It's also worth pointing out that Felipe went hard to soft, so it's possible for the likes of Tim and Codders as well to a lesser extent, but Tim up in P2, if he can get past Matteo on these tyres, and even though Matteo does seem to have the pace advantage regardless of the tyre choice, if Tim can pull out a nice gap, even if it's just the Kai Bacchini and the cars behind, he can then switch to some hards and possibly run that strategy in reverse to what we saw Felipe do. But it's a difficult one stop, that's for sure. Not for the faint-hearted.
Well, Matteo, if I'm not mistaken, this is going to be his first time starting a race, a league race, on pole position. You can see predicted pit stop strategy for him there is listed as a medium soft, medium, or a medium hard. The one stop, I think, is the preferred strategy for the majority of these racers. But it is going to be Matteo on pole position. Tim in the Ferrari is going to be lining up next to him on the front row, and Kai Baccini, deadly as ever in that Mercedes, in third, is going to be looking for serious position off the start of this race. Tim, on those softs, will need to take an early lead in order to get ahead. He needs to get the pace out of those softs while he can. Cotters, just the same. And, of course, Unicorn, take us away racing here in Singapore.
Well, here we go. The lights playing their age-old trickery, but the revs are going up here for the rest of the cars. And there we go. It's a poor start from Crampy. He's sat there like a duck, as well as Kai Baccini. He's had a terrible start. It's Adrian and the AlphaTauri. They're 3 wide going to the first corner, and it's Cotters with a spin. He's into the barrier. But looking elsewhere on the grid, Tim, he has got past Matteo. They're side by side, and it is the Ferrari up into P1 in lead of this grid. Then we have Adrian. He's had an excellent start, getting past Kai Baccini and Crampy. Darian Alfie's up into 6th, and Dux, the reserve driver in the Renault, got past that car. She's up 4 places into P7, and it's now Crampy under a little bit of pressure, but he's managed to stay where he is. He's only lost 1 position right now, but unfortunate for the likes of Cotters. Now it's Henners under a little bit of pressure. It's the erasing point of Ixon going up the inside. He's come close to the wall. It's Squid taking advantage of that little battle there. He's up into 3rd, or back up into 13th place. Domi's already up 5 places into 15th.
This is absolute chaos right now, and it's just a lot of position changes. There hasn't been that much contact. Of course, we had the issue with Cotters where he had the spin in the beginning. Now it's an exchange between teammates. Maxim B is on an absolute charge. He's up 3 positions right now. He's now just dispatched his teammate. Adrian and Kai Baccini are wheel to wheel right now. There goes the AlphaTauri on the inside. Kai Baccini is in 3rd position where he started this race right now, but everybody is very eager for position. Tim did exactly what he needed to do here. He's on those soft compound tires. He has gotten away from Matteo, but he needs to pull a gap, and right now he's in the position to do that. He's just not doing it, and he needs to do it fast because those softs are going to burn out quick now. Kai Baccini is going to be looking to hunt down, of course, Matteo, and Henners in a battle with Domi. Domi's just taking him for 13th position now, and there goes Wisp into the pit lane early here. I imagine we may see Cotters do just the same. Dirk Chocolate into the pit lane as well.
Well, my little exclamation there. Dirk seemed to have an issue out of turn 21 and was just sort of sideways into the wall, but then Cotters slowed down but didn't come to a stop quick enough and just sort of bumped into the side of the stationary McLaren. So not gone their way, as Kai Baccini has a big slide out of turn 8, manages to hold on, still in the running for 3rd place at the moment, and Matteo getting very close to the rear of Tim. Tim seems to be struggling right now. He's up in 1st, but he's on those soft compound tires, and he's not gonna able to hold on to that position for much longer, I don't think.
Things have been quite dynamic on this race start. We've had quite a few drivers come into the pit lane, and when I say quite a few, I mean exactly a few. 18, 19, 20 in this race. Wisp, Dirk, and Cotters all into the pit lane early here. Dux is in 7th position. Unfortunately, can't follow along with his revs because they are just, well, causing us a little bit of a headache, we'll say. Matteo is just keeping with Tim so well here, and this is not good for Tim, even remotely, because this pressure is going to put him in a defensive position. And of course, he's on those soft compound tires, but Matteo brushing that wall. He needs to make sure he doesn't do that too many times because it's very likely he could lose an end plate. It is Singapore after all, but it is clear as they cross the line, Matteo is faster, despite Tim being in the lead of this race right now. Kai Baccini, he can smell the blood. He wants to get in on this, and if Tim and Matteo start fighting, Kai Baccini is going to be rubbing his hands together, wanting to get straight through that action.
Liam had a little look up the inside into turn 1 of Dux, not quite being able to push past the Renault. It's also worth pointing out, I think Dirk Chocolate,
Matteo leading Tim. He gets the move back into 1st position. Here's Kai Baccini on the inside of the Ferrari now. He's looking for 2nd. Wheel-to-wheel action between these two for podium positions right now. That's the Ferrari back through. A little bit of a tap from Adrian on the rear of the Mercedes, and Crampy is in on all of this as well. There's some contact. Kai Baccini's out of this race. Tim has also been collected in this, and I'm not entirely sure what's happened, but that's a massive issue for Kai Boccini. He is out of this race. There's a VSC deployed. And what has happened there? We had a switch of the camera, and next thing you know, Kai Boccini was into the wall.
Well, from my perspective, you've got Tim and Kai Boccini. They're side by side. They come out of the corner, and then I was on board with Crampy, looking at his perspective, trying to look at the rear of the battle, and then just both of them just go to the left and both hit the same wall. Kai Boccini obviously hitting it at a much worse angle, losing that front left wheel, whereas Tim just bounced and lost his entire front wing, so not great for him, but better out of the two. And then Crampy and Adrian, I do believe both got through damage free. No, Crampy has actually suffered an end plate loss there as a result, but Adrian up into P2, no damage for him. Domi, he's going side by side, he's getting past Henners, and Henners as well getting past Ixon on that restart. But Domi already into 9th place on those hard compound tyres, absolutely flying right now in that Williams.
Tim, Ixon both into the pit lane here, and that was just quite the sight to see coming out of that Mercedes. I don't know what happened. Of course, we'll get the stewards to take a look later on, but we are locked in, loaded for action here as Maxim B and CJOS and the Alfa Romeos are looking to dispatch some drivers ahead. It's the Canadians fighting for 6th position right now in Liam and Maxim B. But Liam has other plans at the moment. He is looking at Ducks quite closely with Darian Alfie just ahead in 4th, and there's quite a train of cars here in this fight. Just not too far out of reach of Crampy ahead in the Haas.
Yeah, I'll tell you who's not in a train now. Matteo, that incident has given him a lot of breathing space behind 3.6 seconds. The lead that McLaren's got over the rest of these drivers, and he is looking very comfortable at the front of this grid right now. Whereas this huge now DRS train, now that we're enough laps into the Grand Prix, we're on the new DRS train. There's an issue. It's the Williams of Undertaker, not Williams, the Renault of Undertaker. He's had a spin through turn 12 and a lot of damage on the left side of that front wing as well.
Yeah, it's just taking a 3-second time penalty, and in these races, Unicorn penalties, oh, they can really, really hurt you. Especially those 3-second ones. You can't serve those in the pit lane is the thing.
Oh, we've seen plenty of races changed by those. Who is that coming? I think it's Crampy. Yeah, Crampy not happy with that wing damage. He's coming into the pits. Bit early for him. He's not going to be too happy that his hand's been forced in such a way, but somehow that's just how the cookie crumbles. But still, this DRS train, Liam, looking at the rear of Ducks. He's about to get DRS, but the Renault still just about got it on Darian Alfie ahead.
You're going to look at the position changes. Sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to mention Domi's made up 12 positions. Darian's up 4. Dux is having a fantastic drive as well, and the Renault up 4 positions. Or sorry, 7 positions for him into 4th position. Henners has just taken a 3-second time penalty. So things are developing quite well here. You can see all of the drivers currently, well, down from 1st to 11th position in this race have not yet come in for a change of tires or a wing change. Drivers from 12th all the way down to Undertaker and 19th have, and of course Kai Boccini unfortunately out of this race at the moment after that contact with the Ferrari of Tim. Thank you very much to Kai Boccini for the raid of 8. Very sorry to see your race end early, my friend. We'll get him next time. And, of course, the stewards will review.
Undertaker appears to have retired his car in the pit lane. And it's just popped back out again on track, so here's the second retirement of the race. Not sure what happened there, but evidently he is not happy with how his race has played out. Still this DRS train for 4th place. Dux is just on the cusp of losing it to Darian Alfie. The detection zone is just around turn 4, and I don't think he's going to have it. I think he's just out of the range. And that could result in big issues for that Renault. Liam, he definitely has it, and you can see the wing on that Renault sealed tight. I don't think Liam's going to have the run here, but into turn 13, Dux might be having a bit of a problem as that new DRS zone is going to give him a bit headache when Liam comes knocking on his door.
Ixon just crosses. He's quickest on track right now. He's just set the fastest lap on the freshest set of tires on those mediums. You can see this beautiful aerial view of the Red Bull hunting down this Renault, and he really needs to pick and choose his battles. We've seen it before in these grids when he's under threat. He has Maxim B, and these two have done many races together. Maxim B is going to know Liam's strengths and weaknesses, and if he goes for a move, Maxim B, I can almost guarantee you, is going to be right there. Right there should something happen. Which can both be good and bad if it, well, don't want to be too close now.
Yeah, well, like you said, they're both very experienced drivers. We've seen them plenty of times. As Maxime, a little bit of a slide coming out of the rear of his Alfa Romeo through 18 and 19, sorry, but he's still going to get DRS just on Liam, but that has cost him. And Dux has managed to recatch Darian Alfie as well, so he should be safe as well. But this train is, I think it's just got 2 cars longer as they've caught both Adrian and Darian Alfie, and this is only good news for the McLaren and Matteo up at the front. As Yasko's come into the pit lane, don't know, he's retired.
He's done. He's fed up in that Ferrari. So it's down to Tim now. He's down 14 positions. Pick up the mantle for the Scuderia.
Yeah, a couple of drivers not too happy with how it's gone. So far, both Yasko and Undertaker retiring in that pit lane. But this train behind second place soldiering on, and like you said, Maxime B, he's getting nice and close to the rear of Liam now.
Things are holding well in this grid, and it's not until we start to see a real good variety of pit stops come through where things really start to get shaken up.
Ixon has caught Squid as well. He's very close to the Williams as he takes a big chunk as an end plate flying off of his racing point. Dirty air there. It's very prominent in this game, and I think he has just felt the full brunt of that.
Arian in this hunt for P2 has Dux closing in the Renault right now. Things are still quite
these guys
stable.
in this train, they're going to be feeling this dirty air as well, and when the walls are so close, that's really not what you want to be having. As Darian gets very close to the rear of Adrian. Is this the run he needs? Down into turn 7. Here he goes. Up the inside of the AlphaTauri, and that's as easy as you're going to get them. The assisted overtakes.
Yeah, neatly done there. They're fighting still, though. I think Darian has really unlocked an opportunity for this Renault in Dux.
I'm going to say that I don't think Adrian looking at the inside of Darian Alfie there was the wisest decision. It's really slowed him down, allowing Dux to get a little of a look in, but he's managed to hold on to the P3, which has been demoted into, and obviously he's going to have the DRS on Darian this time.
Dirk Chocolate's had a major issue. What has happened with Dirk Chocolate? We've had a safety car deployment as a result. McLaren of Dirk in the reserve capacity out of this race, and you hate to see it. As Dirk coming in clutch as the reserve over at McLaren is now out of this race, and we have safety car conditions, and who is going to benefit here? Well, I'll tell you, someone, Matteo is going to be pretty pissed off because he's got a nearly a 9-second lead ahead of P2. And now that's going to get completely taken out of the equation. And what's the call for him? Does he come in? I think he hesitated because he ran over the curbing there. And he's had to make a judgment call. So he has come in. This has really spiced things up, Unicorn. This has really jumbled up what we're used to seeing.
This is what Domi needed. This is what Domi needed.
Oh, and the pit crew isn't ready over at McLaren. Or was it? Oh, that was a complete glitch if I've ever seen one. Okay, so Matteo onto the hard compound tires and something, and that was very unique to see, but this is something to talk about. Maxim B, Domi, and Hanners now are your 3 race leaders whom have not stopped in this race. They are the only three with the exception of Gadwin. Of course, who can forget about Gadwin over in the Red Bull? The Finn is one of the, I'd like to say, the prime strategists in the Tier 2 division. He knows something we perhaps don't here, and he has opted to stay out, as Henners and Domi have, on these hard compound tires. And Maxim,
Well,
that is an interesting gamble on the
well,
mediums.
what they've done here, Maxime, I'm not too sure. It's difficult. We've seen Ifili pitch on Tuesday's race. He did do this amount of laps on a set of hard compound tires that the guys who have just pitted are going to have to do to the end of this race. It is possible to get those to the end of this race. They're going to be very, very worn by the time, but I don't think we'll see any punctures. Very, very unlikely, I think. It's going to be tough, but I think if they treat them right. The only thing is, they've all been in a DRS race, so if they keep battling, that could cause them issues. Maxime, I think, is a very, very risky strategy. Whether he's hoping the safety car breeds safety car theory comes into play here, it's possible. Maybe, but he doesn't have too many laps left in those videos. But who this really benefits is these three. Domi, Henners, and Gadwin. Domi started this race in last. He is now in second. And we know Maxime's going to have to pit soon. Those tyres are so flexible. They can go 20 laps easily, if not more. And when these guys on these hard compound tyres, they're going to be battling. They're going to be very worn towards the end of this race. Domi, Henners, and Gadwin, they have a choice. They could just hop onto some fresh mediums, have the pace there. Domi has already shown outstanding pace on the hards. And then Henners and Gadwin, they too could just hop onto those medium tyres. They're going to have pace. And if they start tearing away now, I don't think they will. But if they could, then this is looking very promising for these three towards the end of this race. They're definitely ones to watch.
This race all week long in practice, and we had some bugs in practice, but in practice, in the European split on Tuesday that you and I had the pleasure of commentating, in the Oceanic grid today, even in my Apache race where I race, which is something entirely different, of course, but that's something for the Misfits if you're interested in doing that. It's for the North American end of things. But in all of these races, the strategy, to get to my point, the strategy has been so prominent because of the tire degradation. Singapore, one of the only races, I think, on the calendar where you don't see those softs utilized. And, well, as the primary tire to start the race or things like this. It's just very interesting because it's one of the only races, it's a medium hard one stop. And there aren't many of those races. And when the safety car comes into the equation or the weather comes into the equation, it just really, it jolts the system, because I think all of these guys are coming in here thinking, yeah, I'm probably going to go medium hard or hard medium, and then they get the weather report, and then it's like, okay, there goes the week of practice that I've been doing, because now I've got no information. Or maybe you do, but it's lovely to see. In these safety cars, we were talking earlier about penalties. There are a few drivers on this grid with penalties, and you and I have spoken all season long about how when it comes to the end of a race, right now we're not too bad because we're a third of the way through, but when it comes to the end of the race, let's say we get a late safety car and you've accumulated penalties over the course of the race, that entire grid gets congested, and you have less time near the end of a race to perhaps stretch out a gap to, you know, alleviate the pressure of those penalties, and then you lose positions because you don't have the time to do it. Tier 2, and we see it a lot in Tier 1 as well, because it's very tight in Tier 1, but Tier 2 is also quite tight. It's hard to pull away. Matteo had a fantastic start to this race, and your 9-second lead, now he's in 5th position behind 4 drivers, with some very fast drivers behind him, and the entire race dynamic has shifted for the previous race leader. A lot to think about. Matteo. Just holding well here. I don't know if I've lost Unicorn. We're back to green flag racing, and look at how intense things are already. Ooh, there's a big issue. Yeah, what's happened with Gadwin?
My apologies, I realised my microphone was muted because there was fireworks on during that safety car, but yeah, Domi and Hennes came together just before the final corner.
Oh, there's a little bit of contact between Crampy and Liam. Now it's Joss and Ducks fighting. Things are very tight in this midfield right now. Crampy. A little bit of contact. He's been squeezed into the wall. Who's this with him? That's an Alpha Tauri. Adrian, yeah.
Wisp's just gone past around the outside with Tim in the Ferrari. Now Adrian getting passed by Ixon in the Racing Point, who's gone very deep, almost.
Oh my, wow. That was so touchy. So touchy for the Racing Point. I had an amazing view of that from Gadwin's camera. He slotted right in between, and now there's contact coming out of turn 13. Oh no, and that is the Racing Point stationary. Adrian continuing to press on. Ixon's taking a 5-second penalty for that. And a retirement from him in the Racing Point. Otters is coming through into turn 13 now, and this hasn't sparked anything as a safety car, but it has got the yellow flag sparked through sector 2 and 3.
Yeah, I think that was actually a retirement on a track, not terminal. You can see that car, I think it just pulled into the off track there, but yeah, Domi not going to be happy. He picked up 5 seconds of penalties as a result of a collision with Hennes before the safety car. Like I said, my mic was muted, but
Rampy's had a major issue at that front wing, and it's pit time for him. Curious to see what they do over at Haas Mateo right now on those 2-lap-old hards. The freshest tires in the top 5. He is hunting down Henners now. And Henners has just taken a 3-second time penalty, and he's holding on to that final points position. Mateo has Darian Alfie not too far behind.
It's not Hennes' first penalty either, so he's got a little bit to worry about come the end of this race. Domi, apart from that 5 seconds he picked up before the safety car, he's clear. Mateo's got 3 seconds. Maxime B, he's clear as well. So Maxime and Domi here looking pretty strong, but Maxime on those medium tires, what can he do with this strategy? That's what I want to know. I think if we were going to see a safety car, we would have seen it by now coming out of that first one. So he can't go for another set of mediums, at least not if he wants to finish the race in his next compound of tires. So that's when does he come in for hards?
Big question for sure here. Things are so tight between Domi and Maxim, as well as Mateo and Henners. And Henners is dropping off of these leaders, and this is exactly what they need right now. They need Henners to put a nice big block in the road for Mateo. And he really is that anchor at the moment.
Yeah, Mateo on these 2-lap-old hards, he is looking very strong as DRS re-enabled out of the safety car, and that's going to aid one person very nicely. That's Domi, tight on the rear of Maxime B. I would be very surprised if he didn't get the move done before turn 7 here. And it's also going to create a huge DRS train in the midfield again, situated just behind 3rd place. Different drivers in different places this time as Domi around the outside of turn 6, down into the braking zone of turn 7, and there is the Williams. Maxime isn't letting go of 1st place easily though. He's holding it around the outside, very nicely defended from the Alfa Romeo, but Domi is going to try and squeeze through on the outside, and there we go, we have got Domi up into 1st place, and he's going to look to just breeze away now.
Very neat angle we had on that action for sure. Very tight defense from Maxim, and this has really brought Henners and Mateo back into the fold, and that needed to be a surgical cut through the field, and it wasn't. Now Henners and Mateo are back into the equation, and it's going to be Mateo, I think, the benefactor overall here, as he needs to get that DRS, and he needs to get through this field and perhaps separate himself from, of course, the Racing Point of Darian Alfie, who's within range. A lot of these drivers are within this nice long train right now. One of the drivers to talk about is Joss in that Alfa Romeo. Let's take a look at position changes on this grid as well. All of these drivers in the grid have made up positions, with the exception of course, Mateo, who started this race on pole position, but he is, theoretically speaking, for those tuning in, net leader in this race. The drivers ahead, 1st through 3rd, yet to pit.
Well, Henners just took an end plate off of his car, and that might be the opening Mateo needs down towards turn 1. You can see Henners hasn't carried the speed out of the final corner, and it is Mateo up the inside into turn 3. A little bit of contact between the two, but nothing major. And as Darian Alfie looking at the Haas as well, coming down into turn 5. It's the racing point around the outside of Henners, and Henners, he's going to be coming into the pits pretty soon, I think, for a fresh set of mediums.
This is
and a new
bad news for Mateo, because here's the thing. Mateo doesn't have DRS right now on the cars ahead. Darian had DRS on him, and he is locked in, and he is hunting down this McLaren right now. Mateo will need to pull away massively, so we'll see if he's got the pace to pull out a massive gap once again here. But he's got some traffic ahead of him, and this is going to cost him time to Darian for the time being. Now Ducks looking at the inside of Henners. Henners has damage on the front right end plate, and he's just bashed the wall once again, it would seem. He's got a massive amount of damage. Seajoss is in it now for the Haas as well. I was going to say for the Henners, which is theoretically true. And now there's a big issue for Henners coming through turn 13. He's tapped that wheel on the wall on the inside. Liam, this is really exposed Seajoss to Liam here.
Yeah, Henners did the end plate last lap, the end, but now he's just made it worse. The lack of downforce compounding, hitting a wall, and here goes Seajoss. You can see Henners is just absolutely fighting with his car. He can't get through. Seajoss up into 6th place, now coming down into 18 and 19, and Henners, he's going to be forced to come in here. There's a big kick from Liam's car, with just that slow-moving Haas ahead of him.
Oh, no.
But, yeah, he's now got the end plate missing.
And there goes Henners into the pit lane as well after
Mateo
defending.
as well. Up into turn 1. He's side by side with Maxime B. And he makes another position, and now he can go and hunt down Domi.
What's going to happen between Maxim and Darian, though? Darian's here just the same as we saw it last lap around. He's looking to dispatch another car around the outside. Maxim not falling as easily as Henry did through this turn. DRS for the Croatian driver now, hunting down the Alpha. Tries to squeeze him, does Maxim, but of course now around the outside, Maxim holds it a little bit later on the brakes for the Alpha. Great traction through there, and it's a defense that Mateo is going to be very happy about later on, and he'll be looking to give Maxim a good old pat on the back, because look at the gap right now between Maxim and Mateo. It's growing massively here, and this is bad news for Darian in his hunt for Mateo, 100%.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if we didn't see Maxime coming in the next 2 or 3 laps, because he's on those aging mediums and he needs to get off of them, and we're about the halfway point in this race, so I see no reason as Darian does a huge dive into turn 14. That was completely unnecessary.
That's been really costly for him, and he's not going to be even remotely thrilled about it. He's going to lose so much time to the drivers ahead, and he was in a serious fight for podium position. And that risk, that mistake has cost him dearly. Now he's got to work himself into the rear view of Wisp and perhaps cut through the field once again. He's got great pace, but that was a big, big mistake. I haven't even had a chance to see if there's damage. Ducks now, as a result of Maxime B jumping in, is into 3rd.
Well, like I said, Maxime had to pit in the next 2 or 3 laps, and there he goes, and now Darian would have been free to go and hunt down Mateo, but that move has just cost him there. And we're always a great advocate for patience, and especially at this stage of the race. I could understand if we were in lap 29, 30, 31. We're on lap 16, we were on lap 15. I don't know what was going through his brain there. A completely unforced, costly error coming out of Darian Alfie, and he's going to be kicking himself after this for sure.
Well, he does have one thing going for him in the moment, and that's the fact that he is on 6 lap hards versus Wisp, who has double the amount of tire life on those. And we'll see how much he's able to hunt down that gap, but the one thing we have to look in at is, of course, Seajoss. He's in that Alfa Romeo, and he's hunting down Ducks for P3. Let's take a look at position changes for these two. Ducks and Seajoss up 8 positions and 5 positions respectively. Look at Domi. He started this race in 20th position. He didn't even set a lap. He has so much confidence here around Singapore. Of course, he had a couple of drives around here already. He raced it this morning, in fact, for the Oceanic. But as I've been quoted saying quite early on ahead of this race, I do not believe Domi is going to be the victor. So we'll see what happens here, because Mateo is in a fantastic position. But, of course, Domi still has to stop. Him and Gadwin, the only 2 drivers out of the 15 remaining, still yet to come in for tires, and it would seem that he has the iFelipe strategy in mind, and he might want to come on to some soft compound rubber at the end of this race. So we'll have to just see how things play out for the Hungarian.
Yeah, I was about to suggest that strategy exactly to you, Striff. I know you said before the race that Domi wasn't going to win, and I was wondering which strategy do you think is going to be better for the Hungarian? Wisp as well. Wisp I could see definitely going for some fresh softs, maybe just to pick up final point. Sijos around the outside of turn 7. I think he's done it.
Oh, what a lunge that was out of the Alpha. That was very daring from him, and that is what it takes to get P3 away from the Renault of Ducks, it would seem, because they have been locked together for quite some time. And I imagine Ducks now is going to be, well, doing what he can to stick with the Alpha and plan his counter.
Well, that kind of dramatic move is what Darian would have been imagining he was going to pull off, but
Okay, hats off to Unicorn. That was very good. Oh dear. Darian, however, he's going to be looking to pull off a move similar soon. Wisp is now under threat, and Wisp has caught up with Liam, it would seem, and we have a little bit of a train behind the Canadian in P5.
And DRS, there's now 3 zones around there. I think it's added something to this track. It's made the racing around here so far this week very exciting. It's a shame we probably won't get to see it this year in person. But the digital world doing wonders to bring us multiple Singapore Grand Prix, and so far the shows have been excellent, as Wisp seems to be going a little bit slower than Darian through turn 3, and that could cost him here. Down through the first DRS straight.
Yeah, he's on the hunt here, but Wisp has that DRS to perhaps protect him in this equation. And I think it's going to come down to traction and just keeping as tight as he can.
Now the difference between Domi and Lifelipich is Domi does not have such a big gap behind. That safety car it may look like this grid is spaced out, but Domi would come out probably in about P7, P8, I reckon.
Yeah, the gap to leader right now is not that significant. You can see it now on screen from 10th down to the lead of this race. It's 26.5 seconds. Pit stop can be quite tricky around here, especially on the entry, as we saw in the EU. When I had said Filipich needs to watch it, this could be a costly strategy. And of course, sure enough, there had been a 5-second penalty handed to him for speeding on the pit lane entry. So we'll have to see who ends up taking one of those. Domi into the pit lane. He has successfully made it in without a penalty.
It's going to be mediums, though. And he's going to have the pace, but it's not quite going to be as extortionate as the pace that Filipich and we witnessed there. And he's serving the 5 seconds he got under safety car earlier as well. And that is going to be a massive struggle. So I completely forgot that he had that.
Yeah, so he's come out now behind Cotters, and we remember the gap was about 26 seconds. Now Maxim B's taking him. Crampy as well. Crampy. Darian's so tight to the rear of Wisp now, looking to cut back through this field. And it's very hard to think, I have to say, Darian, had he not made that crucial error, he would be P2 running right now. Or at the very least, him and Cedros would be in some kind of encounter, as there was quite the train.
Yeah, Darian in P6 though, he might be able to get Wisp, especially if Wisp has to pit towards the end of this race. He's not obligated to. He has used 2 compounds of tyres, as Darian has a little bit of a kick coming through turn 13.
There goes Domi ahead of Crampy.
It's the end.
Domi's on a charge here, and he wants to move through this field as quickly and as surgically as he can. Crampy's now been dispatched by the Williams. Maxim B in that final points position is up next. He's going to have the DRS coming out of turn 13 here. And look at the traction. Look at the carry of speed. He's going to look to the outside. Snaps back to the inside, wheel to wheel as we come through the turn. Does he have the traction on exit? Yes, he does. And there goes Domi into 10th position. Now, looking at that Alfa Romeo, in his rearview mirrors, Cotters is up next, 1.7 seconds ahead. And here we have Wisp, who has decided to come into the pit lane behind Dux. Darian has moved up into 4th position as a result, and Liam is not too far ahead in front of this Croatian in the Racing Point.
And this is where everything starts to just heighten in interest, as we've now got multiple drivers not only hunting each other down directly in the form of Darian and Liam, but we've also got Domi trying to cut his way through the field. He's behind Cotters now. Cotters in P7, after an abysmal first lap, is going to be very happy that he's back up into the points, as he gets very close to the wall through turn 6 and almost has a big collision with Domi, who locks up into 7 but manages to make the move. He's up into 7th already, but that huge gap between Gadwin and Darren Alfie, that's going to be a big gap to breach for Domi, even with these fresh medium tyres. Squid, his teammate, is his next target. He'll be happy to be scoring what should be a nice number of points for himself in the championship, as well as keeping Williams at the top.
Look at Dux in this Renault. He's on these fresh mediums. He's looking at Henners quite closely. Henners doesn't have too much of a gap between him and Adrian. It could be quite soon that we see Dux into 12th position on this much fresher medium compound tire. He's going to be looking to really push through this grid. He'll be on some quite fresh rubber near the end of this race. We are on lap 21. There's quite a few battles unfolding on track. Here it goes, Dux on the inside of Henners now. A little bit of contact as we come wheel to wheel through the turn. Henners is going to hold it for the time being. Domi looking at his teammate in Squid.
Yeah, the two teammates battling out. You can just see the pace. Domi staying the fastest lap, but as well, just out of the final corner. Just absolutely flying on these fresh mediums up into P5 now, and this is it. This is the challenge. Darren Alfie's actually been passed by Liam.
Oh no.
And Darren Alfie's going to have another look around the outside of the Red Bull.
Liam's been in P3, has he not? I thought that Liam, yeah. Darian's been fighting, or did they exchange and exchange back? I'm confused.
They must have. Yeah, they must have exchanged and exchanged back. I could have sworn that Liam was the one. Oh no, it's Gadwin. Gadwin's coming to the pits. No.
Okay,
My mistake. My mistake. My mistake.
When did that happen? All right, we're back on track. We have Darian, however, as you said, he's hunting down Liam quite intensely right here. And the top 4 drivers all on these 11-lap-old hards, and I think that penalties could play a role for a few of these racers. Top 4. Domi has 9.3 seconds to the drivers, well, to Darian, and he's on these very, very fresh mediums. And now I'm getting nervous because I made quite the statement earlier.
It was 10 seconds.
That's not
Domi's
making me
flying
feel any
right
better
now.
either.
And Darian and Liam, to make it even worse, are now battling. So they're going to be slowing each other down. And look, Domi now 8.8 seconds, 8.7. He's absolutely crushing this gap, especially into this tighter technical final section. He's gaining big time on the drivers ahead, and everyone ahead of him. 12-lap-old hards. Domi, his tyres, they'll probably be that age when he gets to the end of this race, as he sets another fastest lap in the Williams.
He has been on fire this season. I have to say, he is quite quick. His first season in the Misfits Racing League, of course. Liam now under major threat. There goes Darian up the inside. Oh, and he comes back, and there's a little bit of contact between the two. And I have to say, they're both quite fortunate not to have damage there. I think Darian might have thought he had cleared Liam, which was not the case, clearly.
Maxime going around the outside of Squid in the Alfa Romeo. He's not quite convincingly made the move yet, but there we go into turn 8. Looks like Squid might be suffering a little bit of damage. He is. He's missing that front left end plate. Similarly is Liam, I do believe. So Liam's been doing very well to hold off Darian with that damage on the Red Bull, but now Darian is free. But Striv, look at the time between Liam and Domi. 5 seconds separate the Red Bull and the Williams, and that is very impressive stuff coming out of Domi. He is just flying right now, but the gaps ahead are pretty big, and there's not going to be too much that Domi could do other than just absolutely set fastest lap after fastest lap and really go for those purple sectors. He's going to have to absolutely crush this. I think the win, I think you are safe. I don't think, unless penalties are a factor. I know Matteo does have at least one penalty to his name. He's got one penalty to his name. Sijos has a penalty as well.
Gadwin's just hunting down this Ferrari of Tim right now. We saw have an issue earlier in this race. Up 23 out of 31 at the moment. This has been a very, very unique race. Lots of overtaking, a little bit of drama. We've had the safety car, the first of the week for racing around here.
And again, that safety car wasn't caused out of any malicious, it was just a simple mistake as Gadwin looking up the inside of Tim down into turn 1, and Tim had an excellent qualifying, but strategy and that big incident with Kai Bacchini not paying out as Cotters, Kai's teammate, he's coming to the pits just one lap ago, had a little bit of a tap with the wall there. But Domi, I think, is going to have DRS as Darian and Liam seem to have come together. Or at least Darian's come together with the wall. There is the contact between the two, and Darian, he's had another issue and he's missing both end plates.
No, that's just terrible for him. As Liam now has a big issue in Domi. And this gap to lead is just being hunted down for him. It's 20 seconds the gap realistically to Matteo right now. That is quite a sizable lead.
Well, I think if Domi clears Liam here, probably the best place to do it down into turn 1. I would imagine we saw him take Squid, his teammate, with just the amount of traction he had coming out. There you go. You can see him just absolutely flying by, doing exactly the same thing. I reckon Domi can get P2 here. He needs to close down 6.5 seconds to get within 3 of Sijos. Sijos with a 3-second time penalty. Domi clear now after serving that 5 seconds in the pit lane.
Crampy has his sights set on Squid at the moment. Wisp is also looking in on this action in the Alpha Tower, and there's a little bit of a fight unfolding. Ducks is 7.3 seconds behind these guys on those mediums, so we'll have to see what he's able to do about this gap. Here we have a DRS train of 3 cars, Squid, Crampy, and now Wisp looking to the outside. Is this going to be a move for him later on the brakes? Very tight racing here. Crampy squeezes him off to the outside perhaps a little bit, but now it's still tight with Wisp back through on the inside of the Haas, and that's the move done for him into 7th. Very tight racing between these two.
Well, if you're going to squeeze Wisp, you can expect it to be get squeezed back and
has retired the car.
The pit lane.
Yeah, he's retired the car in the pit lane, and now Crampy's the lone Haas on the grid. Henner's not having the Tier 2 debut I imagine he wanted. He's had quite the amount of racing around Singapore, I have to say. At the very least, he did in 2019. I can't remember if he enjoys the track that much.
I'll tell you someone who's going to enjoy this. Wisp is the only one in this train without damage on that front wing, so he will be quite happy to be sitting here battling these guys. He might even be able to catch Maxime if Maxime has some bad luck on these tyres, which are not that old, so they're going to take it to the end comfortably. And we are the only drivers from that initial safety car that we're seeing. Matteo, Sijos, Liam, and Squid as well. Well, Squid actually even before that. So Squid's tyres.
Oh, he's
very old.
Yeah, this is big problem for him in this Williams right now. He planted that car as strategically as he could through that turn to just ensure that the move didn't happen there, perhaps. Maybe he said, not here, Wisp. Maybe, you know, he knows that Wisp has the speed. Look at the carry of speed with the DRS. Utilizing a little bit of this battery right now. I have to say, Squid has to be burning it because he is still holding off Wisp. Down to the inside. There's a bit of contact. Oh, no.
That's a big collision.
That's huge. What's happened in it between these two? Crampy's just snuck on through. Oh, no.
Tap. A Squid. I don't quite know what the two of them are thinking. This is good for Ducks and good for Crampy, but goodness knows what they're thinking. Before that happened, I was going to say, why would Squid hold Wisp up through there? It's not really his race. He's on those aging tyres. let him through, get the DRS to defend from Crampy, and that mistake has cost them both here. But Squid on track to score some nice points, add them to his total, but again, throwing that opportunity out the window here, coming together with Wisp, sorry. Wisp managing to carry on. He's going to miss out on P6. I think that gap's insurmountable for the AlphaTauri. The damage on his car, it's going to cost him, and it might just allow the runner of Ducks through.
Oh, here we have Gadon on Adrian. This is a very tight section of circuit through Sector 3. The 90-degree turns, of course, as we come through the underpass section there, I believe, with the stands. And we have Gadwin through into 9th position. Very daring. And, of course, there is a good rubber differential. And it appears that Adrian, not too thrilled about that. He's going to come in for some new tires.
Domi as well. He's doing pretty well on his charge. He's getting within towards that 3-second gap between Sejos and himself. Mateo, though,
there
he's
goes
looking
Dux.
pretty strong.
Sorry to interrupt you there. Unicorn Dux has just made it clear of Wisp into 7th position. As, of course, Wisp, after that issue, is going to be dropping through the grid. He's got that front left end plate missing. He will not be thrilled in the slightest about that.
Darien Alpha as well, back into the points for the Red Bull Racing Point. He's hunting down the Red Bull. Fresh shots for Darien as well. Can he? I believe Domi is still in possession of that fastest lap. Let's just have a look. I believe Domi.
Darien has it right now. 137.888. Fastest lap. Of course, if you're just tuning in, we've had 27 laps of very unique running here around Singapore. We've had one safety car. Of course, my name is Strifium, here from Canada. Joining me from the UK is Unicorn, and this is round 16 MRL Tier 2 action. Of course, if you're new, help us out. Hit that follow button. We have Tier 1 action coming up in just about 45 minutes, and that is also going to be here around Singapore. Another roll of the dice for weather, and a very, very aggressive and tightly matched grid matchup for that. So definitely going to be wanting to jump in on that. We have Club Division tomorrow as well. Tons of racing action here. And, of course, we greatly appreciate all of the support. Let us know in the chat, of course, who you have pegged as the race winner here for Tier 2 action. This has been a very, very fun race. You can take a look at the position changes as well on the timing tower. Ducks right now on the hunt. There he goes. Looking at Crampy. There it is for P6. In the Renault for him.
Yeah, Domi, he's made it. He's into that 3 seconds. As Gadwin and Darien Alfie, they've had another exchange. Darien now into 9th. Ahead of the Red Bull. But yeah, Domi, he's in that 3-second window that he needed to be to take Sejos on penalties, but I don't see Domi. He might get past the Alfa Romeo on track, but I don't see him closing down to within 3 seconds of Mateo, so I think you might just be safe for your predictions, Drift.
Well, I certainly hope so, because I like to be right, and I know Domi and I have a good enough relationship that he is just going to give me hell after the race should he come across and prove me wrong. So I'll have hell to pay should I be wrong. Imagine I might have hell to pay should I be right too. We'll have to see. Maxim B hunting down his Canadian counterpart here for P4, and this is something that I'd like to see. I don't have a favorite between them, but I love to see it when they do fight. A couple of Canadians battling it out hard on circuit. Thank you very much to Cagnus for the host with the 5 years. Thank you. Welcome in. Welcome in.
Yeah, I think it is just these two. They're going very close together, Maxime and Liam. Wisp and Crampy, they're getting pretty close as well, but it is going to be Maxime looking around the outside. Liam knows where to put that car, but Maxime just carrying super amounts of speed. You can see the tire difference is a little bit. Oh,
slight tap there. I think it cost him the traction on exit. And ooh, neat move from Maxime there. Around the outside, as clean as you like, and the tire differential, as you said, things a little bit easier in that Alfa Romeo in comparison right now. Speaking of things for Alphas, we have Wisp on the rear of Crampy. Oh, and Sejos He's been overtaken now as Domi is on the charge. Domi, I didn't realize he was that close to Sejoss already on those mediums. Things not going to plan right now, perhaps, for the Alfa Romeo in third, but it is going to be a 3-4 potentially for them.
Well, I'm going to add a little bit more interest to the mix. Matteo picked up another 3-second time penalty on lap 27.
Oh! Wisp has tapped Crampy. I'm sorry to interrupt. Doesn't look like there was any major damage for Crampy's end, but this is really giving Darian a look, and Darian's so tight on these softs. But of course, we'll look in with this as you, of course, give us the penalty situation, Unicorn.
Yeah, the penalty situation, Matteo picked up another 3 seconds, so I still think it's too tall for Domi to close in on. But obviously it's possible, especially Matteo's tyres, they're older, so if he sees a spin coming out of them as a result of that tyre aging, then maybe Domi has an option. He's still closing, but I don't think he's closing at 3 seconds a lap.
No, it's going to be tight, that's for sure. Darian Alfie, speaking of tight, on the inside now of the Haas, that's Crampy. Defending for dear life, a little bit of a slide out on exit, and there's such a difference in pace compared to softs and those worn mediums at the moment. Darian is just clipping in that racing point down the straight.
Yeah, Domi, I don't think he's got this race to win. I think it would need Matteo to pick up another penalty in the space of the last few laps, which I think is unlikely. He needs 2 warnings to do it, but even then, Domi would be hard-pressed. But it's still been a super strong drive. I think both of our predictions are incorrect. I do think Domi is going to be undoubtedly the in-game driver of the day. 20th, the second.
It's been one heck of a drive for him. One heck of a drive. Oh, and things are really intense right now. It's almost a 3-car exchange. It's almost a 4-car exchange now. There goes Cotters. What's happened? That's been a huge issue.
Crash. Wisp got squeezed on the inside, I think.
Oh.
Who by on board Stewart's are gonna.
Well, Cotters is not going to be happy about this. He was slated to potentially take points now, and he's got no more front wing in the chat. Well, this wasn't the commentator's curse this time. I'm going to call that the MRL chat curse. Hello, Cotters is not thrilled even remotely about this. But he is going to do what he can. Perhaps Wisp can't catch him. I don't know. He's going to try to go to the end, perhaps. That is daring. Matteo leading this race 10 seconds on the penultimate lap is the gap to Domi. There's a massive tire differential right now. 20-lap-old hards for the race leader versus Domi in the Williams. On the 10-lap-old mediums, it's Sejoss in third position, quite far ahead of his teammate. He's on the same strategy as Matteo. And this is going to be quite the unique podium, but the big question is, will Domi be able to hunt down enough of a gap to Matteo ahead for penalties to play a role in the race win?
Matteo still using all of these curves, despite the fact that he needs to keep this as clean as possible. And he's still taking the amount of curb he can, and you'd think on these last closing laps that he'd just be a little bit more careful. If he picks up another 3 seconds, Domi is going to be right there and waiting.
Tim has just dispatched Wisp, excuse me. I was looking at both AlphaTauris there. Tim has just dispatched Wisp for P11. Is Tim going to catch up with Cotters? Cotters currently operating with no front wing on that Mercedes. It's a do-or-die finish for him. He wants to get that point here in Tier 2. He doesn't want to pit because it would almost mean certain death for his points possibility. But
well, they haven't been lapped. He's got another lap to go. I don't see it coming out for him.
Well, he's not having the best of time in this fight against Tim, I'll tell you that right now. Of course, Tim has a fully intact wing, whereas Wisp did not, and now Tim just lifting as he comes through the turn there, and you can see Cotters in his struggle. You hate to see it. Having that big drift out wide. Matteo. Pole position for the McLaren Unicorn. His first pole position, if I'm not mistaken, in league racing, if someone can fact check me on that, and he is slated to potentially take a wing, not a wing, he hasn't done that just yet, but he has taken a 10-second gap ahead of Domi. He is about to cross through turn 22 and 23. The McLaren coming across the checkered flag here. The fireworks are going off here in Singapore. Where is Domi in this equation? He is coming through on the medium compound tires. It's round 16, tier 2 action. Is it going to be P2 for him? Yes, it is. And Mateo has locked in that race win. Sijos now coming out of turn 23. With the weave at the line, it's P3 for him, his teammate in the Alfa Romeo. Let's take a look at position changes here. It was Domi who made up 18 positions in this race. 6 for Sijos. It's 8 for Maxim. To the line, Liam has stayed stationary, according to the timing tower, from where he began this race. Of course, in 5th, Dux in 6th position. This has been quite the race, Unicorn, quite the race as these drivers come to the line now here at the finish of lap 31. Darian Alfie jumps Dux into 6th position on penalties collected. It's Gadwin in 8th. Crampy now in the Haas, as well as Tim right on his rear. Are we going to see an overtake? No, I'm looking at something completely different right now. It's Adrian on the rear of Tim, not Crampy, of course. Are we going to see it? Crampy finishes 9th. Tim, penalties. Are they going to play a role? Yes, they do. Tim gets into the points in 9th. Crampy 10th, and Adrian rounds out 11th here. Cotters now with no wing in the Mercedes. Oh, it's a very unfortunate finish for him. Wisp, the last driver on circuit here in Singapore.
Yeah, what a race that was. The top 5 between them. I'm just trying to work this out here. Something like 35 positions gained combined for the top 5.
That's a lot. That is a lot of positions.
What a race we've just seen there. There he is. My prediction coming true. Domi getting driver of the day. He didn't win either, so that's knowledgeable on what I'm saying. A huge leap out of Mateo.
Well, I'd like to say one thing. If I'm not mistaken, that is the maiden league victory of Mateo Longe here in the McLaren Singapore. What a race to win as well. Somebody can fact check that for me. Mateo, I think he's in the chat. In fact, is that your first league win, sir? Grande, Kimmy, grande. Love to see it. What a race. Mateo, he set pole position. He has taken the race win. He did not get the fastest lap, however, but it was a fantastic drive from him. Domi from 20th to 2nd position. He really, really had a superlative race here. Sijos from 9th to 3rd, Unicorn. 12th to 4th for Maxim. It's 8th to 5th for Liam. I knew that it was something off there. I knew he had made up some position. Of course, he didn't start in 5th. He started in 8th, but he made up 3 positions. Neatly done from him. Darian, what a unique race for the Croatian driver. Up and down, all the way through. Dux in 7th. Him in the Renault. With that P11 to 7th finish, we have Gadwin in 8th from 17th. You can't discount the Finn. You can never count out Gadwin. Tim in 9th position in the Ferrari from 2nd. He had a very, very unique race in Crampy. It was 4th for him when things began, and he collects the final point in this one. Adrian, Wisp, Cotters, well, Squid, Henners. We've had so many racers in this one. Ixon, Dirk, Yasko, Undertaker, and Kai. Kai, of course, the first racer to retire in that, well, that issue with Tim. Stewards will review, but overall, what a race it was. Unicorn, let's have your thoughts on that one.
Domi's just reminded me in the Discord of a very, very interesting point. He finished, after penalties have been applied, 4 seconds behind Mateo. Wow. He did pick up that 5 seconds on the safety car. He did serve it in the pit lane, so I don't think it's possible for getting removed. But if it did, that could prove very interesting. But yeah, what a race that was. Domi still very strong. Mateo absolutely dominated that race. But really good from him, and the rest of the drivers, just some huge positional jumps as a result of people just taking advantage of mistakes. We saw quite a few mistakes from a couple of the drivers, but again, at the same time, we saw some excellent moves around the outside. Some really interesting racing, nice clean wheel-to-wheel racing, and around a track like Singapore, that can be a little bit difficult, but
Yeah, most definitely. I thoroughly enjoyed that race. It was a ton of fun. Of course, for those of you tuning in, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everybody who's followed along, and thank you to, well, just all of you for just enjoying the racing action. I hope you really enjoyed that one. We have Tier 1 racing in just, well, what is it then? 35 minutes time. We are going to raid a member of the community. We love to do that after races. Of course, support F1 2020 streams here on Twitch, so we hope you join us. We are going to be back in just 35 minutes time for Tier 1 action, and you won't want to miss it. So if you haven't hit that follow button, help us out. Hit that follow. You'll know when we go live for some very intense, I think you can agree, Unicorn, wheel-to-wheel action here. But we are going to jump into that raid. We are going to jump into the outro, and we will see you guys in just a few, well, in just half an hour time.